Fiona and Dante suddenly got up. Their expressions turned cold and grim as a murderous intent flashed in their eyes. Many people knew clearly about their background on the surface, but little did they know about their secret influence and power. "Who are you?" Fiona asked coldly. Her complexion was calm and unperturbed while looking at Lulu, who pushed the cart on the street below. She thought for a moment before she said, "Since the two of you are curious about me, then I'll clear away your suspicion. As per your words, I'm that little wildcat of the Baxter family's mother. Of course, I don't want to be called an old wildcat." Fiona and Dante looked at each other in dismay. A slight embarrassment was cast on their faces since they had bad-mouthed somebody's daughter, even saying she was a little wildcat. They did not expect that the woman was the mother of that little wildcat. "I apologize." Dante cupped his fists over and smiled wryly. She faintly smiled and said, "It's all right. I'm not easily offended by people. I found it interesting, though. May I sit here and talk with the two of you?" Fiona gestured to sit and said with a smile, "Meeting you today is our fortune. Am I correct in assuming you want to talk about Tom?" She smiled. "Having a chat with smart people has always been easy and joyful. Yes, on the one hand, I want to talk about Tom, and on the other hand, I would also like to know if there would be some opportunities for us to cooperate in the future." Later in the evening, dinner was taking place at Chadworth Island's upscale villa area. There was a magnificent European-style private villa that belonged to Lulu. It was large and impressive and had more than 10 servants. "I've ordered some people to prepare the guest rooms. Do all of you want to rest first or have dinner? Dinner should have already been prepared in the kitchen." This was the first time Lulu invited outsiders to her private villa. She was warm and welcoming to her guests, specifically Natalie, whose impression of her was very deep. In her view, she was doing everything for her daughter at the expense of bankruptcy, drifting everywhere to visit famous doctors and even kneeling in front of others without hesitation. This was the kind of great motherly love one rarely saw. Tom said, "Let's eat first, and please let someone prepare some food for Tiffany." "I didn't ask for your opinion." Lulu snapped at Tom and rolled her eyes. She was warm to Natalie and her daughter Tiffany, but it was different with Tom. She still resented him. Tom did not care about Lulu's attitude. He enjoyed having someone serve him. Since Lulu knocked at his door, he was too disinclined to lower himself and bicker with her. After enjoying the sumptuous dinner, Tom looked at Lulu and asked, "If my guess is correct, this villa is not the only place you have on Chadworth Island, yes?" Lulu proudly said, "That is true. I usually live here most of the time since I'm a respected businesswoman. It's easy for me to have many houses." Tom raised his thumbs and said, "If that's the case, then you can stay elsewhere and give one day off to your villa's servants." "I'm sorry, what?" Lulu was dumbfounded. Even in her dreams, never once had she expected that Tom would say such words. Who did he think he was? She was, after all, the owner of this villa. Where in the world could a guest be able to command the host? Natalie was also stunned. She looked at Lulu, whose complexion greatly changed, and quickly spoke with a low voice. Tom raised his hand to interrupt Natalie. "Miss Baxter, I thank you for your hospitality today. We need to borrow the villa for one night and we'll return it by tomorrow. Moreover, I have something important to do tonight and can't be disturbed by an outsider's presence. If you don't want to leave or don't want your servants to leave temporarily, we will leave right now." Upon hearing Tom's explanation, Lulu felt much better. But still, for Tom to insist that she must get out of her own home made her bitter. "Are you threatening me?" Tom said, "No, it's not like that. I'm just explaining it to you." Lulu observed Tom's serious expression while at the same time cursing this guy's strange taste. Other men would have been ecstatic to spend the night here with her. But this guy, he wanted to kick her out? Who did he think he was? "Have it your way." Lulu's ego was hit severely. She angrily drove out all her servants and then took her favorite roadster. With the loud rumbling sound of her engine, she bolted like an arrow out of the villa. Now inside, there were only Tom, Natalie, and her daughter remaining. He told Natalie and Tiffany to sit on the sofa in the living room. He poured 2 cups of tea and placed them on the coffee table. Natalie was nervous. She remembered that Tom said he must talk about Tiffany's condition. She did not know whether Tom would tell her the good or bad news. After staying silent for a moment, she took the initiative to talk. "Sir, if there's a problem with my daughter, please tell me about it. I will be able to bear it." Tom said, "Only little do I know about the two of you. Could you tell me about your situation? There are some things I must know about your circumstances before I give you my final decision." For a moment, Natalie stared blankly, before she nodded and said, "Her father and I were orphans. We grew up in the orphanage together and then married later, after which we lived quite a rich and good life. Her father had a car accident over 2 years ago, leaving me and my daughter alone. My daughter was very sad, leading to her sickness. She had a high fever for 7 days and nights. After that, she had this strange illness. It's been more than 2 years since I quit my job. I sold all our property plus the compensation from the car accident for a total of nearly $2 million. After expenses for 2 years, there's only $300,000 remaining. Since you have cured my daughter, I want to give you the remaining $300,000. Tom waved dismissively and said, "I don't want your money. I just want to know your family situation. Since Tiffany and you only have each other, have you considered the future? Where will you live and work?" Natalie shook her head and said, "Today, it's very fortunate that we came across you as my daughter's strange illness has been cured suddenly. All this time, I haven't had the time to think about anything and prepare for our life in the future because I was only concerned about Tiff." With a satisfied expression, Tom said with a smile, "Since you have yet to plan for your future, how about I arrange your life?" "An arrangement?" With astonishment, Natalie looked at Tom. She did not understand his words. Tom said, "Tiffany was not sick. Her previous state happened because she had a special constitution. The kind of physical constitution she has is rare, and it's called the sacred body of twin pulse ice phoenix. It is an extremely rare constitution which is a type of body most envied by immortal cultivators." "Immortal cultivation?" Natalie was shocked. She was an atheist and did not believe in the existence of gods, spirits, or fortune tellers. She thought that those were lies used to deceive people. Tom said, "Yes, I'm a cultivator who practices immortality cultivation. Perhaps there are only 2 immortal cultivators on Earth. The other one is an unofficial student I just received a while ago." Natalie shook her head and replied with a laugh, "Doctor, please don't make fun of me, but I think these are fabricated things created for those who lack a strong mentality and spirit." "Ignorance," Tom said with a sneer. "You're the type of person whose brain has been washed by the mighty torrent to this age. Do you think a person's imagination can fabricate those myths out of nothing? Do you believe that people from ancient times were all ignorant and idiots? This world is not only cultivators, but also immortals, demons, spirits, Buddhas, even higher planes, and the existence of gods." After speaking, Tom's fingers bounced as the heavy coffee table in front instantly flew. With his accurate strength control, after the coffee table flew up, it paused for a few seconds and floated midair. However, when the coffee table looked like it would fall soon, Tom moved again, flicked his finger, and quickly pinched the edge of the coffee table before he gently put it down. Natalie's eyes almost popped out of her head as she looked at the scene in front of her with a flabbergasted expression. Her heart trembled. "Tom is so powerful." Tom laughed. "Look at me, and look clearly." When his voice finished, his body instantly disappeared from his spot and appeared in another hall like a phantom. A few seconds after, while Natalie was still in her trance-like state, with lightning speed, Tom appeared again on the opposite sofa. "Are you a man or a ghost?" Natalie's body was trembling as she hurriedly hugged her daughter and exclaimed out loud involuntarily. Tom smiled and said, "Didn't you say that you don't believe in ghosts and gods? Why do you ask such absurd questions? My cultivation base is very low right now, but in the future I will become immortal and ascend to the immortal world. We are on Earth now, but in the starry sky, the universe as you know it is only an ordinary space. But on other higher space planes, there are many worlds, one of which is the immortal world." Natalie was utterly shocked. Her worldview changed abruptly. She easily believed Tom's words since he was, after all, her daughter's savior. He was a capable person with mysterious and magical abilities. Dr. Stevens, why do you want to tell me these things? Natalie hesitated as she asked in a low voice. Tom replied with tranquility. I want to take your daughter as a student and teach her the immortal cultivation techniques. Natalie suddenly realized Tom's intentions, but she knew nothing about the cultivation method practiced by cultivators. She didn't know whether this cultivation practice would be good or bad for her daughter, so she did not dare to agree immediately. As if he could see through Natalie's thoughts, Tom slowly said, You can cast away your worries. Your daughter was born to be a cultivator. I've helped her change her condition before, but it will only temporarily suppress the chilling frost energy inside her body. To cure her thoroughly, she must learn an immortal cultivation technique. The frost energy will then no longer cause any injuries to her, and instead give her huge benefits. When Natalie heard it, she immediately nodded in agreement. Her daughter was the most important thing of all. She would agree to everything if she were safe and healthy. Tom smiled. To tell you the truth, I admire you. I can see an admirable love from you. I was also brought up in a single-parent family. Please, feel relieved and trust me. You will be glad for today's decision. Natalie replied with doubt. Then, shouldn't a ceremony of apprenticeship be held? Tom said, The ceremony of apprenticeship is simple. Making a commitment and serving tea is enough. With that, he looked at Tiffany and asked with a smile, Are you willing to learn under me as your mentor and follow my practices of the immortal cultivation technique? I should clarify that you will be my student if you learn from me. The immortal cultivation path is very long and will take hundreds of years. Along with the advancement in cultivation practice and your cultivation base becoming more powerful, you could live at least 1,000 years or even for millions of years. In taking the cultivation path, you'll encounter innumerable hardships. Tiffany exclaimed in astonishment. People who practice the immortal cultivation path can live so long? Tom said with a smile. Yes, of course. Living for millions of years is also possible if they don't die halfway. Tiffany asked again, Can my mother also practice immortal cultivation? As he nodded, Tom looked into Natalie's eyes and said, Naturally, she can also practice. However, her age is past the best time for cultivation practice, so her future achievement won't be too high. Even if I give my assistance at best, she would only be able to ascend to the immortal world and become only an ordinary immortal. Tiffany nodded repeatedly and then knelt in front of Tom. She respectfully bowed her head 3 times and then took a cup of tea on the coffee table without dropping a drop of tea. She then exclaimed, Mentor, please drink my tea. Tom looked at the tea with satisfaction and drank it down. He received Tiffany to nurture her as a student, not simply an unofficial follower. It was because of her sacred body of twin pulse ice phoenix. After all, if she were nurtured well, she would highly likely become a great celestial empress in the immortal world, someone who would be above trillions of immortals and celestial beings. More importantly, she would also become a formidable helper when he returned to the immortal world. This was a most fundamental truth. Previously, he did not want to accept students and instead cultivate his power and influence. However, this led to his demise. He fell under his old friend's betrayal, easily falling and failing his ascension in tribulation. If it were not for the destiny that his soul and consciousness had returned, perhaps his soul would have vanished just like ashes and smoke, extinguished by the wind. Natalie did not even think about the matter of practicing cultivation. What she cared about was her daughter's future. So when Tom had finished drinking tea and took her daughter as his disciple, she only asked, Dr. Stevens, you said you'll arrange for our life in the future? Along the way to the villa area, Tom had thought about this problem, and he already had an idea in mind. Then, he slowly asked, What was your previous occupation? What kind of job? Natalie said, I was an administrator for a foreign enterprise. Tom said, If you want to be my housekeeper, would you accept it? A housekeeper? Natalie was stunned. She didn't expect that Tom would arrange such an assignment for her. After sobering up, she said with a wry smile, I don't know much about housekeeping. Tom said, You have 2 options. First, I'll send you abroad to learn and study about it from a housekeeping training organization. Another option is for me to hire specialists and professionals for you to carry out your training separately. Which one do you intend to choose? Natalie looked at her daughter and replied with a low voice. Can I choose the second? I want to be near Tiffany, and going abroad is not convenient. No problem. Tom took out his mobile phone and dialed Fiona's number. He asked her to hire 2 professional housekeeping instructors from abroad. After asking about the fee, he found the price was expensive, as it would take $50,000 for 2 months of training. After having called, Tom said, I've contacted my connections. They should be coming over in a short time. And one other thing. I'm not from Chadworth Island, so you'll follow me to live in Star City. We'll rest here for a night and then return to Star City tomorrow. Natalie nodded and said, I'll listen to your orders. Tom replied, You must study hard in your housekeeping training. When you have finished your training, I hope you can live with Tiffany on the Pacific Ocean. I've bought a private island there. It's more than 10 square miles, so I'll have to hire many workers and servants. A private island? More than 10 square miles? Natalie was awestruck by Tom's words. Only then did she realize that she was ignorant and knew nothing about Tom's status. Dr. Stevens, why would you make me and Tiffany live on an island in the Pacific Ocean? What about Tiffany's studies? Wouldn't it be the same that she would live isolated, cut off from the rest of the world? Natalie asked. Tom said, Living in seclusion for cultivators is a normal practice. However, since now is a new era, I won't be that strict and old-fashioned. I'll hire top educators and professors to teach her. I'll also give her 2 months of vacation each year to travel outside and learn through direct experience in society. Natalie said with hesitation, Wouldn't it be too much for only one child to have such a grand scale of treatment? Tom said, I have my plans. You don't need to worry or say anything. Afterward, Tom imparted an immortal cultivation method to Natalie, directed her, and then sent her to his guest room. Since Tiffany had become his student, it was necessary to teach Tiffany the best immortal cultivation techniques in the immortal world, and it was very fortunate that he had a set of supreme cultivation techniques suitable for Tiffany's cultivation. It was called the Secret Art of 9 Heavens Ice Phoenix. This was one of the supreme cultivation techniques in the immortal world for hundreds of thousands of years. Each person who mentored this cultivation technique, if they did not fall halfway, would eventually become an important powerhouse in the immortal world. With his current cultivation base, Tom could not impart the contents of this cultivation technique via direct transmission to Tiffany. He could only teach her step by step, from scratch. For example, human anatomy identification, meridians, Mindseat, etc. Much to Tom's satisfaction, Tiffany was extremely intelligent and learned quickly. In the next 2 hours, she had grasped all the essential things. Now I'll teach you the secret art of 9 Heavens Ice Phoenix, and you need to memorize it seriously without mistakes. But remember, you must never disclose or privately teach this cultivation technique to anyone, not even your mother, Tom warned. Tiffany nodded. At 2:30 a.m., Tom finally completed teaching Tiffany the secret art of 9 Heavens Ice Phoenix. He let her try to induce her energy circulation. Although her first attempt failed, Tom knew that it was normal. For an ordinary person, wanting to sense energy circulation and even controlling the circulation of energy was difficult. Months would be needed for cultivation geniuses to have a first success. If one's aptitude was ordinary, it might even take a year. That's good. Now go rest. Tom patted Tiffany's head and said with a smile. Good night, mentor. Having endured suffering and pain for 2 years, Tiffany had developed a mature disposition compared to her peers. Although she was only 9 years old compared to teenagers, she was more sensible. Meanwhile, at Chadworth Island, in the Regent Amusement Clubhouse, inside a luxuriously decorated private box, Lulu's mouth was filled with beer and an angry expression covered her beautiful face. Her best friend Hannah Williams sat beside her. The girl and Lulu were of the same age and had an elegant appearance. "Lulu, drink less, will you?" Hannah had the markings of a lady. Even though she sat on the sofa, she still looked dignified and virtuous. However, at this moment, concern and frustration could be seen in her complexion. Lulu gulped down a large glass of beer. She was drunk, and said angrily, "Damn, Hannah, I'm so unhappy. Who the hell does Tom think I am? After occupying my villa, he kicked me out of my own place. Have you ever seen such a thick-skinned man?" Hannah smiled. "Oh, I've never been such a thick-skinned person. However, I find him interesting. Just think, you're the embodiment of a high-class babe, but he can ignore you in your enticement. He even kicked you out? As one of the rarest men in the world, of which I thought this species had come to extinction. If I have the chance later, you must introduce him to me." "Good luck introducing yourself to that man." Lulu burst out and lost her ladylike appearance. But Hannah knew perfectly well about her character, so she did not get angry and spoke again, with a smile. "It's 2:30 right now. Don't you think we should leave? You don't want to sleep on the streets tonight, do you?" Still, with an angry tone, Lulu spoke. "Where to? He's taken my place." Hannah said, "Let's go to my place. Dad gave me his newly renovated villa last month as a birthday gift. I don't think you've ever been there." "Hannah, you're the best." Lulu's expression changed to lightning fast. Her previously gloomy face turned bright and beautiful as she smiled. She held Hannah's arms and gave her a little kiss. She quickly jumped up, grabbed the bag, and rushed outside the private booth. When Lulu rushed out of the private box's door, she bumped into a sturdy and robust chest. The impact made her stagger, and she stumbled backward a few steps, almost slumping to the floor. Lulu rubbed her head and shouted in a rage, even before she saw the other's appearance. "Are you blind or something? You've hurt me!" The person who bumped into her was a bald, shaved, tattooed youth. His build was tough and stocky. He had a fiendish look, especially with the thick gold chain on his neck. A cigarette was clamped between his lips, and his brows were furrowed. He was in a bad mood. Upon hearing Lulu's curse, the tall and burly youth strode forward and pushed Lulu down to the floor. "You brat, it's you who is blind. Do you dare to blame this on me? I'll shut your mouth forever if you dare to say anything foul again." Hannah, who just came out of the private booth carrying the bags, happened to see the scene. Her complexion greatly changed as she immediately rushed to Lulu's side and spread her arms to protect Lulu. She glared at the tall, burly youth and snapped, "Who the hell are you? Why did you push this girl?" The tall and burly youth did not see Lulu clearly, but he could see the graceful Hannah. His face changed immediately, and the angry expression disappeared. He touched his chin and showed a harassing look as he said with a fiendish laugh, "I am indeed in the wrong. I really shouldn't push this girl. There's another way I could show her how powerful I am. How about it? Are you her sister? Do you want to see how powerful I am?" "You are shameless." Hannah cursed in rage. The tall and burly youth laughed evilly. "Just wait, I'll make you know how shameless I am." The tall and burly youth moved his hand to grab Hannah. Hannah dodged to the side quickly and pulled Lulu up from the floor. After a few steps backward, she shouted, "You damn thug, get the hell out." The first time Lulu hit him, she was not fully aware, but now she had gotten back her composure. She stared at the man and shouted, "You can't let him get out. Nobody dares to hit me on Chadworth Island." The moment the tall and burly youth saw Lulu's appearance, his complexion immediately blinked for a short moment, as a burning light suddenly flashed from his eyes. He regretted pushing such a beautiful girl. However, there was no turning back. He could only bite the bullet and brace himself. While sneering, he said, "Acting big, huh? Talking big and powerful. Even if I were in New York City or Los Angeles, nobody would dare speak to me like that." Lulu ferociously glared at the man. While in extreme anger, she still spoke with a smile. "Well, you are even more arrogant than me, huh? But if you have the guts, then wait here. If I can't make you fall to the ground, I'll let you take me." After having said that, she immediately took her mobile and dialed a familiar number. Her eyes flashed, and she suddenly pressed the dial button directly. The number turned out to be Tom's number. She got from an investigation. "Who is this?" A low and deep voice came from the phone. "I didn't have a place to spend the night, so I had to go to the Regent Amusement Clubhouse to do some karaoke, and somebody attacked me there." Lulu said loudly, "Tom, since you live in my house, don't you owe me one? Now I need your help. Can you come here?" "If somebody hits you, just find your dad." After having silence for a moment, Tom whispered this answer. "What did you say?" Lulu's voice was raised by a few decibels. Tom spoke again helplessly. "Okay, just wait there. I'll catch up with you quickly. Pay attention to your safety." When such a caring voice came out of the phone, a slightly beyond expectation expression was revealed on Lulu's face. She was not worried about the means to deepen her relationship with Tom, and now the opportunity was right before her. She knew that Tom was a cultivator and that his strength should be powerful. After hesitating for a short while, she decided not to call her subordinates again. What an ability! Asking for help is a good way to lure and goad somebody to act, huh? After he watched Lulu make a call, the man sneered afterward. Lulu stared angrily at him. She pulled Hannah back into the private booth and dialed Regent Amusement Clubhouse's general manager's number at the same time. She quickly reported with a simple explanation and then hung up the phone. "If you have balls, just come in and wait." After Lulu entered the private booth, she didn't forget to shout those words loudly. The man rolled his white eyes as he took out his phone and made a call, calling his companions, and then they entered the private booth. He quickly swept around the interior and then swaggeringly went over to sit on the sofa, curling one of his legs onto the other. He then smoked a cigarette as he said while laughing, "Looks like you were wealthy, huh? You can even spend the money on such an upscale private room. But I forgot to tell you something. You'd better apologize if you don't want to drag your family into a calamity just because of a little trouble, and then wait comfortably to serve me for a night." Lulu angrily replied, "In your dreams." The man proudly replied, "You can play hard and reluctantly admit your mistake, or wait for your reinforcement to be utterly defeated. Either way, I will win in the end." Hannah pulled Lulu's lower hem and whispered, "This guy is way too arrogant. He might have some background. Is that guy Tom you've called reliable, or should I call my dad?" Lulu thought a second before she shook her head and said, "It's fine. I'll send a message to my brother." "Hey, what's going on here?" At that moment, more than 10 strong men burst through the private room's door, led by a middle-aged man in a suit with gold-rimmed glasses. He looked inside to see the situation, and he asked loudly. The sturdy youth rolled his eyes and cursed. "Who are you? Just get out!" The manager glanced coldly at the young man before his complexion changed with concern, fear, and trepidation, asking, "Miss Baxter, are you all right? I'm sorry for the problem and hope you can forgive us. Our security will take care of this problem. Anyone who dares to make trouble for our Regent Amusement Clubhouses will be dealt with." "You don't fear that you'll swallow those big words back. I want to see why this cheap Regent Amusement Clubhouse even dared to deal with my brother." 3 men came in from the room's entrance, smoking their cigarettes. The one who just spoke was a very handsome young man in the middle. Leonard frowned. Ever since he became the Regent Amusement Clubhouse's general manager, he'd encountered many young playboys from influential families. Still, he had never once seen these youths in front of him. He knew perfectly well that today's incident would cause big trouble. After all, Lulu was a young lady of the Baxter family, while Hannah was the only daughter of the Williams family's head. These 2 women's backgrounds were scary and had a tremendous influence on Chadworth Island. "Who are you?" Leonard asked with a sinking voice. The youth replied with a sneer. "Do you know Russell Wilson? He's my father. I've been studying abroad in recent years. I never thought you would take that excitement away when I returned and wanted to entertain some of my friends from afar. Regent Amusement Clubhouse's manager, eh? What bullcrap. Even if your boss came, he'd bow down in front of me." "Russell Wilson? The big boss of the Bright Radiance Group?" Leonard wryly smiled secretly in his heart. Although the Bright Radiance Group's strength could not be compared to the Baxter family, it was also a very powerful family on Chadworth Island, almost on par with the Williams family. He knew that today's matter would not end peacefully, and he could not escape the trouble in front of him. Regardless, after weighing the pros and cons, he decisively stood at Lulu's side and spoke with a lowered voice. Your father is indeed a respectable person, but his son turned out to be a rotten straw bag. He gestured to the security guards and said, take those 4 and get them out of here. Over 10 security personnel swarmed after getting the order as though they were ferocious wolves rushing toward the 4 people. You dare to do this? Never in his dreams had Charles Wilson thought this manager would still dare to act against him after dropping his father's name. Today he invited his 2 friends from New York, and each one's background was no worse than his family's. Shame. He felt that his face was swept clean at this moment. A cold light flashed from Charles's eyes. His body burst out instantly as his big fists fiercely punched several security personnel and knocked them out. The other 2 men were also not idle. Their looks were ordinary, but their martial arts were also extremely impressive. Not only had they acted fast, but their strikes were ruthless. The men overthrew 10 tall and strong security personnel within just half a minute. Charles stared at Leonard and coldly snorted. Only a few people dared to stand up to me my whole life. You did have the courage, and your Regent Amusement Clubhouse is also good, but I guaranteed today's matter would end with you kneeling before me. Lulu and Hannah were not frightened by the scene in front of them. Although they were shocked by the fighting strength of the men, it wasn't anything they hadn't seen before. You do indeed have the capital to be arrogant, and apparently you can also hit more than 10 people. But more than 100? 1,000? I want to see you showcasing your skills facing a gang. Lulu clapped her hands with eyes full of contempt. Charles replied with a wild laugh. You're such a hot girl, huh? You've got style. Even if you have the ability, regardless if you call 100 or 1,000 people, bring them on. I will take them down. Do carve in your mind. I'm called Charles from New York. Don't wait until you have a one-night stand with me for you to know my name. Lulu was silent for a moment. She took her mobile in front of Charles's face and dialed a number, asking, Old friend, have you heard of Charles from New York? A big arrogant chap? I heard of him, a little nobody. Frank's sleepy and hazy voice came over from the cell phone. Lulu said, Okay, I got it.